Here's how I make my sourdough waffles. This is starter. I always keep it in this jar. It's been in this jar for, what, 15, 20 years? I don't know. Long time. So, first, I'm going to cut up a date. These are yummy medjool dates. You get them on eBay, shipped direct. They're very inexpensive. So I like to have a date in the waffle. So I'm going to put that in the bowl. And then I use some pecans. I like these. I roast these a little bit ahead of time. It just makes them better because in the waffle they don't. If you just use them raw, they don't seem to get as toasted. You don't want to burn them. So they're just slightly done. So then I got those two ingredients. Now I'm going to put in the sourdough starter. And the starter, you can see it's risen up in the jar. I always keep it in the refrigerator. It's this thick. You can see it's pretty thick, so I can use it right out of the jar. And you can see the fibers stretching from the gluten in the wheat. This is a mixture of soft white wheat, which is more of a pastry wheat, and hard red wheat, which is more of a bread wheat that has the higher gluten content. And I also have some rye in there. And I grind them up myself. And I don't measure anything, so it's probably like about, I don't know, 2/3 hard wheat, and maybe not quite 2/3 hard wheat. There's more hard wheat, then there's about not quite that much soft wheat, and then I put in some rye. When I'm making bread in the winter, I up the rye amount. Anyway, you can see I put in some of that dough in here. It's pretty hard. It's pretty stiff, I mean. And I just add a little bit of oil. I have here a little bit of olive oil. About that much. I don't measure anything. I should say too, I should mention that the sourdough starter, I'll talk about that later, but there's some salt in it already, so I don't add any salt to this. You could if you want a little more. And then I'm going to put some maple syrup in there. So you want to have a little sweetness, and that adds a little bit more moisture. Depends how sweet you like them. And you can add more on the top too if you want. So there, it's pretty stiff. But it's going to be a nice crunchy waffle. You could add more water, I guess, if you like them softer. Oh, and I forgot my other ingredient is I'm going to put some roasted buckwheat in there, which is also known as kasha. I've already roasted this. It's slightly roasted. I'll put in about that much. It gives it a nice crunch and a nice flavor. And this is what kasha looks like if you buy it in the store. You can get it this way, already roasted. And probably that's the easier way. This is really good buckwheat. So kasha is just buckwheat that's been roasted. And I'll mix this in. That's it. Now the next step is going to be put it in the waffle iron. Okay, here I am at the waffle iron. Ignore this. This is part of the hot plate. But this waffle iron, you can get these at Target, so just standard electric one. They're about $20, $25. It was all shiny stainless steel, and I got it, but the oil kind of drips down on it. And, well, I'm a bachelor, and I don't care, so I don't scrub it off. But I usually cook my waffles on high. This has a temperature control. So it was a ceramic coated surface, but I always oil it because the waffles I make can be sticky, and they don't stick when you oil them. So I use this silicone basting brush that works the best. I've had this for years. I just put a little bit of oil on it, and that's the best way to get it evenly on all these surfaces. Put some on the bottom, some on the top here. It's a little bit messy, it's a little bit smoky, but that's the way it works. And you can see some of it's burned on. So on top of the ceramic, it has its own coating now with this oil. And there isn't too much sticks to it. If it ever does, you just put this in, put some water in there and soak it, and you can clean it off. But it's very rare I get anything sticking. So I have it on high heat. It's a little bit messy too, the way I do it, because let's see if you can see, it'll drip oil down. See, there's some oil there on the counter. So if you're squeamish or you want to put a pan or something under it, paper. I don't know if you can see that smoked a little bit. Anyway, it's hot now. I do it if it's hot. I do it the same way if it's not hot. Doesn't matter for me. So, put on the waffle batter. I just kind of spread it out a little bit. I want to overfill it because then it runs out the side. But this is pretty thick dough, so it's going to stay put. So that's it. I just put it down and let it cook. So however hot and crunchy you like it. It's got this red light. Green is supposed to be when it's done, but it depends on the particular waffle iron how hot they get. And I always use it just on full heat here. Maybe some will get too hot, but you'll learn just from experience. Okay, it's been about 5 minutes. 5-6 minutes in the waffle iron here. And I like it a little crunchier than that, but it all depends how you like your waffles. And the thing I forgot to mention was how to get waffles out. Now my pan, this waffle iron is pretty non-stick with all this oil I put on there. You can see I can just lift it off. I don't know if you can see see, it comes out pretty easy. But if it sticks, use something like a chopstick. Or I've been using this. The end of my spatula is rounded. It's just the right shape. And you just put it in and slide it along the underneath in one of the grooves here. Like that. If something sticks, you just kind of work it along and it'll pop it right out most of the time. It'll get most all the waffle out. Sometimes I put fruit in my waffle directly, and they'll make it more stickier. Certain fruits are stickier than others. Use caution using blueberries because they turn to mush and stick all over the waffle iron and kind of make a big mess. But apples, they don't usually stick. Peaches are okay. Some people like their waffles crunchier, and some people like the fruit in there. I do it both ways. Recently I've been cooking some applesauce, and then I put the applesauce on top of it. So I'm going to let this just cook a little bit more. Oh, and what I do too, these are pretty thick. Now, you know, they're more dense. It's all whole grain. the way I make them. This one, when I eat them, sometimes I split them open. I'll split them in half like that. You can see it's all cooked inside already. So, depends how hardy you are, how much of sourdough you are. If you like the stuff, some people like lighter, fluffy waffles. I guess you could have added a little baking powder to it. I used to do that sometimes, but you know, if you want it to puff up more, it all depends how hardcore you are and what you like, I guess. So I'll let it cook a little bit more, but I'm going to talk about my sourdough starter a little bit here. Okay, my starter it's nice and sour. I've kept it going many years. I always have a quart. I always have about a quart in my refrigerator. You can see I have this much left. This is good for another waffle before I needed to make more, add more to make more starter. But you can do it at any point. It'll just, the more you have in the jar, and if you add flour to kind of faster, it'll work. But I need to show everybody how to do this. So there could be like 2 or 3 tablespoons in there. Same deal. So what I do is I add some water to the jar with what's in there. You don't want to go past about half, because then the jar will get too full. You see I have this big hole drilled in the lid. That's for if I put too much sourdough in, it'll come out. It won't pressurize the jar and blow it up or cause problems. It'll just come out of the hole. It lets the gases vent. So I just shake it up and get it all mixed up there. And the other thing, it's real controversial in some of the sourdough circles. I don't know why. I've been always doing it, but I add a little bit of salt to it. And just shaking some in out of this. I probably just put in about maybe a teaspoonful. I don't know. I don't measure things. Use your intuition. And so I get that shaken up in there. So it's all mixed up pretty good. So now my flour. I should have something to show the flour here. I'll just do it over here on this. My flour I grind myself. Like I said, there's a combination of. I grind my flour a little bit on the coarse side, which you might have seen in the dough. You can see it's not super fine. I like it a little coarse. But however you have, whatever you have. And this, like I said, there's a combination of whole wheat, soft white wheat, and some rye. So now I'm gonna just put some flour in. This is how I do it. It doesn't take long to get this stuff going. I just add some flour in here. And mix it up with a fork or a spoon or whatever. You want to leave it a little wetter than it looked like when I started, because it's gonna, that flour, especially this coarse stuff I use, is going to absorb a lot of the water. See, that's pretty thick, so I'll add a little bit more water. And I've got the jar. I left this much room. This is gonna probably a little too much. It's gonna probably, it'll rise all the way up to the top by the morning, and close to it, but it won't hurt anything unless it gets all over whatever you have on your refrigerator. So this is going right into the refrigerator. That's pretty much it. I don't wash my jar out every time. All this extra flour in here, it's just got sourdough in it, and once in a while I clean the edges off. But I use the plastic lid, it never rots. And that's it. By the morning it's going to be pretty much probably looking like I showed it to you when I started. That was I was probably like 3 or 4 days old, maybe, when I started out and showed you. But this is all ready for another 2 or 3 waffles. Now you use the same thing for making bread. I do the same process for making bread. I would use this much starter for 2 or 3 loaves of bread, and I would replenish it the same way. So that's the starter. That's how I do my sourdough. Now if you want to start out from scratch making starter, that's another story. If you knew someone like me, you could just get a couple tablespoons of this and you're ready to go. You don't need to start out from scratch. But the aroma of it is going to be like kind of tart, tangy, acidic, sour. It won't smell musky or anything. That's how you know you have a good starter. So find a friend who has a good starter. And the starter is just made from scratch, from flour and water. I'm kind of lucky here because I have a spring. I get my spring water, and I can grind my own flour, which is nice. So, but use what you have and it'll work. Sourdough isn't complicated. It isn't difficult. I know on some of the groups of people fuss around a lot. They weigh all the flour, they weigh all the water, they weigh the salt, and they talk about hydration levels, and they talk about all kinds of things in there. When their bread's done, they critique it. It has to be perfect. To me, it's just if it tastes good. But like I said, I'm a non-fussy bachelor, and I don't have to put a lot of time into making my food so much because I have a lot of other hobbies and interests I have. So that's my editorial on sourdough. Just do it. It isn't complicated. It's easy. And don't worry about putting salt in there. People go ballistic about salt. It's okay. It helps it. I've been making sourdough bread for like 40 years. So it's okay. Anyway, that's it for the sourdough. Waffles, a little bit of sourdough starter. Have fun. Okay, since I've been making the video, I was just talking about the sourdough starter. This has been cooking in here, like I forgot about it or whatever. But it's been in here since, let's see, I started it about 12. It's been in here like 15 minutes or a little bit more, and it's just fine. See, it's a little dark. I like it like this, crunchy. When it cools off now, it's going to be like a crispy cracker almost. And it's good enough just to eat like that. And sometimes I make waffles without any sweetener in it, just for a quick sourdough bread. They don't have to be a sweet type breakfast waffle. And you can put in nuts, you can put in seeds, whatever you want to do. Just try it. It's simple. Experiment and enjoy. I love my waffles. Every morning I have a waffle just about. Okay, my starter starts out with flour. I'm making this after I made the rest of my video because I know people are going to ask me about my flour. So this is hard red spring wheat. That's what this is called. This is a higher gluten kind of for bread. And then I mix in a little bit of soft. You can see a difference in the color probably. I don't have the best lighting in here. This is soft white wheat, which is kind of more of a sticky flour. It doesn't have so much gluten in it. And then I also put in some rye. Sourdough, you can't get better flavor than when you have rye in. And so the proportions are just whatever you want. Usually I use a little bit more wheat, hard wheat. And I use more rye. I might go 50-50 rye in the winter time when I want to make some heavier rye bread. And I won't use any soft wheat then, or just a little tiny bit. But for what I'm doing now, I like the flavor. So I'll show you how I grind it. I have a mill, I'll show that too. Okay, here's how I grind my flour. This is a KitchenAid mixer. And then on the PTO shaft here, looks like just a bunch of plastic, but it's a German grain mill. And it's real low friction. They have a hand crank unit, but that would take forever. Hand crank that would go on here. But the engine, it's incredible German engineering. There's just a little grinding, metal grinding disc in there that does all the work. So I just put my wheat in here. Turn it on. And that's it. I have it out in my shed here. See if I can get you a close-up. You can adjust this for how fine you want the flour. But like I said, I do kind of a coarser flour. I like it a little bit coarse than fine. And I've had this grain mill for I don't know how many years, 10, 15 years. I had to get the adapter came with it to fit the KitchenAid PTO here. And this KitchenAid, that's all I use it for is grinding wheat. I don't use it for kneading bread or any of that. That's the sole purpose. And like I said, I've been grinding all my wheat and grain, which is for I don't know how many years, 15 years, maybe more. Doesn't ever go bad. Here's some of the grain mix I had in here, so pretty simple. See, there isn't a ton comes out real fast, but I just go and let it go until it's done. I never really timed it. It'll probably take about I don't know, half hour maybe to grind all that. So that's how I make my flour. I forgot to do a shout out to Kate's Ag, her YouTube channel. She's a 16-year-old grain farmer, farms with her family. They grow wheat in Montana. And it's been fun watching her YouTube channel because she explains all the intricacies of growing wheat, how they do it on a large scale, and how it gets cleaned, and the different varieties they grow, and some of the history of the land there. So I'll put a link to her YouTube channel in the description, and it's kind of fun to watch and see how you get the wheat. And maybe someday I'll get some of the wheat and try it. This is Kate's Ag YouTube channel. She drives the big combine, and she has some really interesting videos. I really enjoyed this one about how they clean the seed, the wheat, to get all the weed seeds out and the chaff. And there's a lot of different equipment and machines involved to get it nice and clean, and we don't realize how they do it. And she's got quite a few videos here, and some of them are really interesting. I've been really enjoying learning how they grow wheat on a large scale. So check out her channel. You'll probably like it. I wished I was that articulate as she is when I was 16.